district again. Yep. Hardly worth mentioning.
It's really something that was fantastic here. You couldn't ever imagine this.
4, 3, 2, 1, ignition.
It is said the devil must reveal the truth before deceiving, implying a cosmic or spiritual role that evil forces, or the devil, must somehow disclose its intentions or true nature before leading someone astray. And the individual must, in some form, consent to this deception. It must acknowledge the free will of man and nature of consent in a spiritual and moral context. For we ultimately are creating our universes through the mind's eye from our spirit. Even quantum theory and its experiments can now state that clearly. And for an earthly being to deceive us, or any dark force against nature, we must agree to their universe, their deception, their perception, make it our own. To allow evil and its deceit to fully exert its influence, it must be accepted by those it seeks to deceive, emphasizing the importance of personal responsibility and awareness in decision-making, like a full disclosure contract. I don't know if there has ever been a more blatant, full disclosure spiritual contract than the one I learned about today entitled Transgender Day of Visibility, now every year on March 31st. Its opening year, perhaps not so coincidentally, falls on Easter Sunday and was announced 2 days ago on Good Friday. Signatures on this contract to be through votes on Election Day this November. Now, why is this a contract with the devil, dark forces, or at the very least, low negative vibration? Easter Sunday represents the spiritual reality of eternal life. That on higher planes, there's no time or space as we know it down here on Earth, or this lower vibrational 3D plane. It knows, as Jesus knew, there is only one eternal moment. That which exists will always exist, and always has. You are forever all that is, Source, or God's unique perspective of itself. And after death, you continue as this perspective, in some form, still as this unique perspective. Jesus' resurrection tells the story of this truth personified. That he overcame the original sin of man, which is that we often forget our connection to God, our power, our sanctity at birth here. When we forget this, power then must be gained from without of oneself. It is quantifiable and must be taken from others. It is a consequence of our ego completely taking over and thinking it's all there is. Never a divine plan or purpose. It is alone and unguided. We die, the switch goes off. Darkness. We are worm food. There is no universal truth, no order, no guidance, no moral better or worse, no good or bad. There is only do as thou wilt, your earthly ego. Love in this situation is just an emotion that is virtuous to show and at least pretend to feel. For those that bear this shallow perception and mindset, can be an unexplored guilt and confusion that this love emotion seems to be so outside of them, and that it can actually be easily turned off. Ignoring or even being oblivious to the pain and constant dis-ease, and more often than not, disease they feel and experience by not feeling and knowing love as not just an emotion we can choose to feel and show, but more as the creative force that we all are. It is literally life. Love is the force behind all of creation. It is the slight positive charge here on this plane. Forgetting that can, at least more often than not, lead to a living hell experience and need to manipulate and control others. Outwardly grasping fame, fortune, and godlike status. Government by men over men is well fed in this situation. And the larger, the better. A world government being ideal. It is the antithesis to a free world that knows the individual is paramount here and should be placed over any sect or group. That we are all separate, individual, and equal thoughts of God, of all that is, of Source. That we should have the freedom to explore, hone, and express our unique individual frequencies and perspectives freely here, without the obstruction of our fellow man. For that is what God intended for itself, to have that full experience. Depriving it in oneself or others is a sin. On this physical plane, as long as one is not physically harming or obstructing another, an individual should be free to do as they wish. Knowing this, we'll now switch to Transgender Day of Visibility. The idea that Transgender Day of Visibility should have its inception fall on Easter Sunday is an affront to the reality of the eternal higher power within. Transgenderism representing the ego's will over God. The idea that one can change what Spirit intended by merely not acknowledging it or chopping it up. Having the earthly ego act fully in control, fully at the helm, always present for its whole life experience. A constant ego's act and performance, pretending to be something it was never born to be and never truly is. It is the original sin personified to its fullest extent, stating they can change what God made them, the ego's ultimate blasphemous arrogance. They have forgotten so much of the true nature of existence in themselves that they are literally dismembering their earthly bodies, stating there is no man or woman, that if God exists, it was most certainly wrong when it comes to them. These people, well, some are just born bad. God had that thought, and here they are, in all their ridiculous, frightened, desperate splendor, chaotic and miserable, choosing to sometimes unknowingly dig themselves deeper and deeper into a true hell on earth experience. As long as they don't force it on others, don't force its celebration and acknowledgement through the brute force of government and its laws enforced by a brute physical force, we wish them the best. We want you to do you. We are proud to allow it, knowing its allowance is giving you the freedom we should all have here. It, however, should not be taught or administered before an agreed upon age of consent. To do that is physically harming and sexualizing a young and innocent growing soul's experience. Too young to know what is right for them, as they have no idea who they are. Too new and defenseless, trusting and dependent. Too naive and innocent to understand and fight earthly evils and predators. Most adults, however, are not too young and have been allowed agreed upon and adequate life experience to get to know and develop themselves securely and safely. Because they were brought up in a civilized, rational, and considerate society. A small silver lining. These considerate adults can actually benefit from knowing about these ideas, these self-tortured souls, by seeing so obviously clearly what they do not wish to be, what they do not wish to experience for themselves. Ideas and actions they have grown to see they have always had an innate negative gut reaction towards. Those people can now grow and know themselves better through the mere existence here on this plane of polarity of these tortured souls. They can view the left and its left-hand path, its children of Satan, haunted by demons here, soon to be eternal demons themselves. The good, the healthy, can view these tortured souls and sharpen and hone their unique frequency vibration through the friction, through the polarity, They can know themselves more by seeing and feeling and understanding so well what they are not. And they can better fight for God here, understanding and exposing this darkness, bettering their own lives and perspectives, bettering and enriching the lives and perspectives of those they love, and eventually, if successful enough, helping those that have forgotten to remember. And in the case of transgenders, also possibly helping them to remember, and possibly never knowing the pain and confusion or the need to dismember at all.